Now, obviously that's not the only reason behind the Revolutionary War. But the second sentence of the Declaration of Independence invokes the Creator and invokes the presence of God as a basis for what we should do and what we shouldn't do, based on how God created all men. Now, of course, the hypocrisy of the American Revolution was slavery. But it didn't take very long for the abolition movement to say, hey, wait a minute. If God created everybody equal, He created the black man equal, and we're not treating him as equal, so we have an issue. There's duplicity within our system. Now, so watch this. And so the language of our national conscience, the Declaration of Independence, was leveraged and slavery was done away with. But think about this. During that time of debate, no one ever said, well, we're not accountable to God. I don't like how this war is going, so, I'm just not going to be accountable to God. It was just understood that despite the Civil War and despite all the debate, we as a nation were still accountable to God. Then in the aftermath of the Civil War, in the Gettysburg Address, Abraham Lincoln used two words that have become a high-profile phrase in our country. I'm going to dig in halfway. Listen, he says, that we here highly resolve that these dead, the battlefield dead, shall not have died in vain, that this nation, and here it is, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom. Under God. What does he mean? Abraham Lincoln viewed our nation as a nation under the authority and accountable to God. And he wasn't afraid to leverage that imagery and that paradigm and that worldview when he talked about political issues. He just came right out and said it. We are a nation under God. We don't get it right every time. In fact, right now we're in the middle of a civil war. But hey, at the end of the day, we realize and recognize that we are still accountable to God, Creator God, for our decisions. And then in the 1950s, this phrase, under God, was placed in the Pledge of Allegiance. So whenever we say the Pledge of Allegiance, we are declaring that we view God as the one who oversees this nation. Now, do we all agree about God? No. It's much, much broader than that. But there's the acknowledgement that there is gratitude to and accountability to God. And then in 1956, something really incredible happened, and I really wasn't aware of this until I started preparing for this message, so thanks to Andy Stanley for this information. But in 1956, under the 84th Congress, our country got a brand new motto, and President Eisenhower signed it into law. On July 30th, 1956, our brand new motto became, "In God We Trust." Now, those words have been on our coinage since after the Civil War, but it was as recent as 1956 that our Congress decided that our new motto would be, "In God We Trust." What were they thinking? What were they thinking? They were thinking it would be a pretty good idea for us as a nation to place our trust in God. What's another way that we could say this phrase? How about shortening it up and just say, "We trust in God"? Or we could even shorten it a little bit more and just say, "We trust God." That is our motto. Did you know that that is our national motto? I didn't. Now think about this, because this is huge. It's very powerful. A motto is what drives a business. Help me out with these mottos. Chick-fil-A's motto is? Right. The Army's motto is be all. M&M's motto is melts. Nike's motto is? Just do it. Timex's motto is? Keeps the licking. And America's motto is, "In God We Trust." Wow. Now let me ask you this. What if on the first day of school this year, every principal in our country would get on the school PA system and say, as you start your day, I just want to remind you of our national motto. We trust God, kids, so don't forget, trust God today. Woo! Can you imagine? Oh my goodness, that would be so offensive. There would be lawsuits everywhere. People would be pulling their kids out of school. We would be accused of religious coercion. And we would say, well, it's the national motto. Well, I don't care if it's the national motto or not. You're trying to impose religion. No, we're just quoting Congress. Look, it's on your coin right there. Wow. You see, for me, that's why we had Tony do what he did. I think that's why, if I had served this country, I would be weeping. I would be weeping for this reason. As a nation, we have come so far from In God We Trust that now it seems strange to us. We have drifted so far from God talk politically that now it would be odd. Now it would be a lawsuit if a public school teacher or a principal insisted that after their students say the Pledge of Allegiance that they quote the national motto of the United States of America. Isn't that strange? We couldn't allow them to do that. Why? Now check this out right here. Because God, in terms of accountability to and gratitude to, has been pushed further and further and further and further out of our national consciousness. Every 4 years, as our president is sworn into office, there is a group of people who want to take the phrase, "So help me God," out of the official oath. And to be perfectly honest, I understand some of the animosity towards so-called Christians, because there have been some whacked out so-called Christians who have done some ridiculous stuff under the name of Christianity. So you couple that with people's strong desire not to be accountable to anyone, and you end up with a nation whose national conscience is drifting further and further and further from God. Now, I want you to know this morning, this isn't some kind of pep talk to get you all riled up and us go fight for our rights. That's not what this is about. It goes much deeper than that. You see, the reason that this is such a big deal, and the reason we need to talk about it in church, is because our national conscience, what we should and should not do, is tied to the existence and presence and the centrality of God. It is intrinsically linked to God. It's not like we're simply going to miss God, like, wow, we were a better country when God was at the helm, but hey, we're still hanging in there. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with how we view what we should and should not do. And the further that we distance ourselves from the mention of God, publicly, nationally, and politically, listen, the further away we get from being able to express our nation's gratitude to God, and the further away we get from our national sense of accountability to God. And here's why that is such a big deal. When we no longer express national gratitude and accountability to God, something else will take God's place.